Hello all and welcome to a little bit of SaaS. Before we dive into the episode today, if this conversation brings up any sort of interest for your company, organization, or association when it comes to IT implementation or any sort of tech product like AI or automation, please reach out to us at Celentive.com, and I'll put it in the show notes below so you can get in contact direct with us to have a discussion about how to implement the right products for the right reason to get the best outcome for your business. The episode you're about to listen to is jam-packed full of insights from my conversation with very special guest, Jonathan Cartledge, who is the CEO of Consult Australia. Consult Australia are an industry association dedicated to the success of consulting businesses in design, advisory, and engineering. My conversation with Jonathan explores how industry associations and their members are navigating rapid technological change and keeping up with it. We unpack the impact of AI and the challenges and opportunities of digital transformation and why incremental investment and strategic planning are key. You'll hear real stories and anecdotes from my conversation with Jonathan about adapting new technology, empowering people, and building resilient organizations and associations. If you're curious about how technology can unlock high-value work and drive innovation for your team and your organization, you're in the right place. I hope you get as much out of the episode as I did from my conversation with Jonathan, and we look forward to seeing you at the next episode. Jonathan, welcome to my podcast room here. It's really great to have you. Thanks for coming over here. I'd love to start our conversation just by learning a little bit about you and your role and everything. But also, I just want to make sure that we get the most out of our time together. And we want to talk about some, changing landscapes in the technology space within your sectors and members and organizations. And there's so much I want to unpack in such a short time. But thank you for being here. Why don't you start by telling us a bit about your role in Consult Australia as the CEO?
Yeah, thanks a lot, Brendan. Look, good to be here. I mean, I think these conversations, both in terms of the industry we represent, but from an association perspective, are really critical conversations right now. So Consult Australia is the industry association for firms consulting in the built and natural environment, so design, advisory and engineering consulting companies. So we represent about 170 different companies of all sizes around Australia, employing just over 30,000 staff in every state and territory, and delivering the built environment that sits around us, the infrastructure and buildings that deliver outcomes in communities across Australia. So it's a fantastic role, great organisation, small organisation, 13 people at Consult Australia, delivering for all of those members, but a really powerful and impactful network when we think about the role of those businesses in the Australian economy. And I came here, I'm 3 years in this role, in fact 3 years on Friday.
Oh wow,
it's
very
my
nice.
second innings at Consult Australia. From 2010 to 2016, I was head of policy and government relations, and I've bounced around in my career between associations and the not-for-profit sector and government in a public policy and advocacy context. So about 20 years across a whole range of different organisations in that space.
Wow, you've certainly been around the block, and I feel very honoured to have someone so credible right in front of me. And so I want to learn a little bit more, about your industry.
Credibility depends on the issue we're talking about, right? So depends.
True that. And what questions do I want to ask you now? I'll go off script. Well, look, for a bit of context for our listeners, so I work for Celentive, and we've done a little bit of an uplift for Consult Australia, and we've helped out with a few sort of technology projects. And so I guess we're keen to talk a little bit more about what that might look like for your sectors, your members and organizations. What would you say are the key things that are happening in terms of the change that's going on and how your members are adapting to that change, or perhaps not adapting to that change?
Yeah, I think my reflection is probably for us as an association, and associations are no different to any other type of organisation in trying to navigate the technological changes that are around us at the moment. I think what's interesting, reflecting on the association space, is thinking about how that business model of associations has changed or not over the decades, the role of technology in those changes and what that means in terms of how we do what we do, whether that's our primary purpose at Consult Australia, which is the voice of the industry to advocate to governments around a better policy environment for our members. But there are a whole lot of other things that we do as well in terms of how we engage with members to deliver that voice, the services that we provide to members, whether in terms of education and training or events, and how we deliver those in a way that is of greatest value with limited resources. All of those different aspects of running an association, I think, are challenged or impacted by technology, and I think it's really important to think about that. Just like all organisations, whether it's our corporate members or government or academia, need to think about what do these technological shifts mean for how we do business.
Yeah. And so how are you finding some of these conversations with your associations and members? You know, are you having to educate them and bring them along the journey as a sort of an industry leader, or what's that like?
I think we're all grappling with it, right? So I think, we're a 70-year-old association, and in the not-for-profit sector in Australia, there are 700,000 not-for-profits in Australia. So organisations in that space. But even within, we would say we operate in the built environment sector. We're an industry association, so we're representing businesses. So these are sort of subsets of the association space. And I think peer associations are all navigating this, and you can see this in terms of how services are changing over time, the types of roles that we're recruiting into our teams to deliver services are shifting to complement the technology that's available. Things like podcasting, for example, is coming through as a strong service in some of the associations. So there are things that are definitely shifting. And if let's take two examples. So if we go back and you think, 70 years ago, a lot of the issues and way we were grappling with those were the same. So 70 years ago, we had a whole lot of committees. We were bringing members together. We were asking them what their problems were, and then talking about those challenges and identifying solutions that we take forward for government. Fundamentally, that's what we were doing. And then we expanded, and so we were thinking about, okay, how can we support you to build competencies in your teams? So that might be some training or offering that we're making that way. We run events that bring people. And then you have events like COVID that land, and that really changes how you do events, and that suddenly you're delivering not face-to-face, you're delivering online. You need a technological component that goes with that. And I think the pandemic, I think in many ways actually shifted the approach in the association space to technology, but also shifted some of the business models when you look at things like the role of events and how members engage with those. So we are all grappling with that space, and I think all thinking about what the rapid evolution in technology means for how we deal with that changing environment.
Yeah, and I love what you sort of like pointed there. There's almost like some milestones over time that really kind of force us as a society at large to sort of make those changes, and COVID was one of them, right? Because even parents and grandparents had to start to go online, right? So there's that very basic kind of like capability uplift that we were forced to do because of COVID.
Yeah.
And then that became kind of the norm in some ways. Like it became normal to go, why are we meeting face to face? Let's just meet online, for in the business context and whatnot. And now, fast forward another 5 years, AI really is the hot topic, right? And that's become a thing we have to sort of, step into, right? And so how are you finding AI now with all of this and the disruption that's sort of posing?
I think it's trying to anticipate the opportunity that can deliver in terms of that business model that I described, and in terms of the team that delivers that business model. So I think one of the characteristics, if you take Consult Australia, an organisation between 13 and 15, a team of 13 and 15, many of which operate part-time remotely around Australia from all locations. So, and a really high-performing team. So what we attract, we're a very issues-rich organisation, and we attract a really high quality of individual with a high skill set. But because we're a small organisation, it means that those individuals are often sucked into more routine administrative or governance tasks that are really important to keep the association running well, but aren't maximising necessarily the skills and experience that they're bringing to the role. So I think what I'm hopeful for, and I think it's yet to prove itself entirely, but you can see the glimmers of hope, is that new technology and solutions will provide an opportunity to take some of that administrative burden from those team members and enable them to do what they do really well and do more of it. And I think that's really exciting, because that then translates to greater value for our members, better engagement with government, and just delivering more as an organisation at a higher level, and also making your day-to-day job more interesting because you're doing less of the
boring
stuff.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Look, and I love that you've pointed on this, because I think it's such a key thing, and it's what we're seeing in the technology space and the adoption of AI is like the easiest win is something like, let's say, Microsoft Copilot.
Yeah.
Because it's already kind of integrated into the whole sort of ecosystem of what you've got. Of course, there's a bit of work there, and you and I know from our organizations working together to sort of help Consult Australia do the foundational work, whether it's your data, your CRM, and all those sorts of basic things. But once you get that organized, and you can automate as much as you possibly can, it frees your members, your team members, your staff members, to have more meaningful connections with your customers, members, whatever you want to call it, your audience. And that's the high value task, right? That's what builds trust. That's what makes change. That's what makes that's creative, it's innovative, and as soon as you can free up all that space to have more of those deeper connections, the world's your oyster.
Yeah, that's right. And I do think it's important, because that's challenging, right? Like, some of the stuff we're doing is it's hard, and it's hard because the benefit that will come, it's almost like the benefit and the challenge is kind of one in the same. So the challenge is that we're a very small organisation, and delivering that sort of change in a small organisation is hard. But the benefit is because we're a small organisation. So you want to pull on it as effectively as you can, which as we've gone down this pathway together, I think an incremental approach has been really important, because it's a bit of a, and this is true for all of the organisations like us, we're a jigsaw puzzle. We've got as you said, we've got a CRM system, we've got a website platform, we've got a cloud storage provider, we've got a whole lot of hardware, we've got a Teams environment that may or may not be working well. And how do we incrementally improve all of those elements and stitch them together in a way that's going to deliver that opportunity for the team to do what they do really well? And I think just moving down that pathway in a systematic way with a kind of a logical and incremental approach to invest is so important. And I think that's where we've enjoyed the partnership with Solentive, because that's so important to, not getting that out of order or out of sync, and then being frustrated 2 steps down because you didn't do something in step one that you should have thought about. So having that strategic approach to those investments and plan kind of gives me confidence that we will get to that end point and create those pathways to better productivity.
And that's the thing, right? Like, it's not just like implementing a product. It's people change, it's change management, it's empowerment, right? It's bringing them along with you, and that's where we've seen other organizations and companies really succeed. And we've also seen some not succeed because they've just tried to sort of buy the product and go, here you go guys, go for it.
Yeah.
It's like, then you start to run into all these problems, and then you don't get the value out of what the tools are there for.
Yeah.
So it's really a holistic approach, and I love that for you guys, you've brought your team along from the journey, and that really is the key thing that we're noticing when it comes to this change at a very large large scale, I guess. But what I love about what you said earlier, to do with, I guess, we're in this space now where there's so much opportunity. And I think for Consult Australia, you're leading by example from what we've seen. And I'm sort of giving the audience a peek behind the curtains, right? It takes time. And you sort of very transparently said, we're getting there. And that's what everyone's doing. No one's figured it out yet. And I don't know that if there ever is a point where you figured it out. That's when you should be your most worried.
This is it. And I think it's an ongoing investment is the other thing. I mean, it's not set and forget. I think both because of that jigsaw puzzle and we're trying to put all the different pieces in place, we also recognise that that investment will need to continue in an incremental way so that we are continuing to adapt.
Well, you want to see the ROI, right? You want to see the value, and people don't know yet when/where the value will show itself because there's not enough, we haven't had enough time to really have that data yet to prove it, which makes my job very hard as a salesperson, Jonathan.
Yes, I would imagine.
But, and you mentioned it earlier and then you touched on it then again about the investment, right? I'm curious for your associations and members, that we're in a stage of time where the economy is really struggling and people are watching every dollar they're spending. And, it is an investment to put time and money and resources into your technology strategy, especially with AI and change management. What are your thoughts on that space with tight budgets and everything at the moment?
I think you've just got to proportionate to what is available and do it in a proportionate way. But doing nothing is not an option because you'll just go backwards and you'll miss opportunity. So what we're trying to do is make sure, some of the return on the investments that we're making now or that we made last year, I don't think will land probably for another year or 18 months. And that's okay. But if we hadn't done that, then we're going to be 3 years behind in that period of time. And the technology is moving so quickly. And I think the expectations of our stakeholders are shifting so quickly that we need to keep up with that. Or at least be making movements towards keeping up with it. So I think doing nothing is absolutely not an option. You'll just fall further and further behind. And I think to safeguard our options for how we deliver value in 5 years, we absolutely need to be making these investments now. And it's not, I say investments, but I think it's really important. This is not rocket science type stuff. This is about making sure that, and what we do fundamentally is very similar to what we did 50 years ago. But I think it's making sure that when we look at our comms, when we look at how we engage members, when we look at our document management systems and our kind of commercial storefront, when we look at how we build our website, all of these really kind of fundamental pieces can be enhanced and improved over time with investment in these technologies and make how our team interacts with them, but also how our members a better, higher value experience. And that's what I mean when I talk about investing. It's not sort of doing some new crazy AI search function that's available to our members to find out a whole lot of things about their firm that they didn't know about. It's actually just about their interaction with us and getting better value from that and making it easier and smoother so that we can do what we do better.
Yeah, there's such a key, simplification process that people overlook, I think, with AI. It's like, AI is another form of technology, of course, and there are many other things there that it sounds like you've been able to perhaps consider, not just for your own team's productivity and the way of working and what you said earlier about the more of an enjoyment in their work and what they do, but more from the members' experience and whatnot when it comes to interacting with you, whether it be the storefront and website and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. I think there's a thing where people can get to the analysis paralysis where they sort of go, wow, there's so many AI products and now I'm just going to get none of them.
Yeah.
Or there's the other people who are your technology leaders, or it's more of the forward-thinking people who want every product.
Yeah.
But it's like you don't need every product. And actually AI sometimes is just, people confuse AI and automation.
Yeah.
If something's automated, doesn't necessarily mean it's AI. It just means it's a process that could be set up so that it's a sequence and then it just kind of works in a loop or something, right?
Yeah.
So it's about really just having that conversation, isn't it, with your team and looking at your business and how it operates as a whole, and then starting to just match up the products, right? And teaching the people how to use it and work together.
Yeah, and some of it's, to be honest, some of it is just healthy catch-up. I mean, I wouldn't pretend that we're at the front end of the adoption of kind of all things Copilot and AI at all. I think a lot of what we've done is a little bit of catch-up and say, oh, well, these are some investments that we might have made some years ago and we didn't, so we need to make sure that we've got them in place now and that we've got the infrastructure around that to support that, and the bonus of that, some of that catch-up actually is that you are then much better positioned to take advantage of some of the newer technologies that's coming through, whether that's Copilot or other AI tools, or changes in how you might deliver a CRM or a website platform. You can, because it's all so integrated, you don't want one part of your system holding you back. So making sure that you're sort of lifting everything at the same time is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what the space right now has done for a lot of us is it's made us aware of all of our, fragmented foundations, let's call it, right? So, you got your underlying data and systems of record. And for a lot of organizations and companies, as time goes on and you get buried in your BAU and all these things, you go, oh, hang on, it's been 2 years and we haven't even figured out our data governance and all these things, and people are saving things in the wrong places. And then as soon as you start to think about any sort of automation or AI, it does start to, well, it won't work as effectively because AI will enhance whatever process you're already doing by about 3,000-fold.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
and you have all these, you're navigating all these weak links and past decisions. So, and everybody makes decisions based on the best of intent. And so someone made a decision to invest in a CRM 10 years ago, and that meant that you needed a specific web platform. And then 5 years later, someone changes the CRM, but you keep the web platform. And nobody's really looked at that as a system to work out how it works together. And then you need a different storefront. And then over the top of that, you want a Teams environment that integrates with your new CRM. I mean, it's like that is reality. And so you need to be looking at all of those elements and making some strategic decisions around, okay, where are the priorities? How do we improve that integration? What can we live with that's a bit rubbish over a period of time? And where are we really falling behind? And where do we need to be in 5 years, and make sure that we're positioned for that? But it's in a small organisation, you're kind of juggling all those bits and pieces all the time. So taking a strategic view, being incremental, making ongoing investment, considering how you're getting the return on that investment, and if it's in the right areas at the right point in time. I think they're all really important decisions.
Yeah. It's, I guess, it can become a bit of a kitchen sink situation, right?
Yeah.
Whereas, if you just take that time and, maybe that time looks like a cadence every 3 to 6 months with your leadership team to just say, hey, are we doing everything in the right, do we need all these products? What do they do?
Yeah, is it working? Yeah.
Is it working? Yeah.
And
to just...
And what's changed?
What's changed?
Because you make a decision to purchase something 3 years ago, and then the technology moves pretty rapidly with a different level of functionality that integrates with a different system. So you've got to keep reviewing that, because the business case for the licenses that you have may not stack up anymore, even though it feels like you just made that decision yesterday and it was 2 years ago. So staying on top of that and not just accepting the status quo of the systems that you hold, I think is really important.
So then, I guess in light of, the economy and the investment steps, and then in light of what we just talked about there with maybe just scanning everything and sort of going through what's a priority, what's not, where can we get the easy wins, what would you recommend as like the first steps that perhaps your members or organizations could take if they're thinking, oh, we need to take a step, but we don't want to take that leap, we want to take baby steps, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I reflect on 3 years ago, I mean, there was ongoing work to map our systems, and I'd probably speak to this from an association executive position. I think looking across all of those systems that inform our IT infrastructure, understanding how they hang together, understanding the weak links, and then looking at where maybe there are some missed opportunities in terms of where we want to head and where the priorities are, because you can't do it all. You can't replace your CRM, rebuild your team's environment, develop a new document management system, a new store. You can't do all that all at once. So you do have to map, prioritize, understand the business case for interventions. And I think that's where working with Celentive, it's been really positive, because we've been able to work together to understand what sort of investment is required to get those systems working better together once we've done that strategic mapping. And then in some instances say, well, we won't do that now. That is a lower priority. We will do that later, and we'll put that on the shelf, and we'll take something else forward. But I think taking that very strategic view and understanding, which I think is also where Celentive has been useful in, the steps we need to go through to get to that end point. So, that might be things like, how we tag and manage our documents to ensure that if we move down a Copilot path, that we're going to get maximum value for that. Sounds pretty basic, but then that goes to how you're structuring your whole environment. So there's work to do to get to that point. And if you've been working in a particular way over a number of years, then you need to move carefully in terms of disrupting what is really great work happening across a team while you decide to rebuild their IT infrastructure around them. So you have to be really incremental in that approach, strategic, focus on the business case, commit to ongoing incremental investment. And I think that's probably how I would reflect on the last few years.
Yeah, and I think just to sort of like paint a bit more of an overview there of what we're talking about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here. So I guess, we're referring to a bit of a roadmap here. So it's like, okay, there's been a bit of a discovery process where, I know Celentive sort of came in and sort of said, okay, well, how does your business operate? So let's just have a bit of a, a brains trust conversation about what's going on here, what tech products are you already using, and then, there's a sort of not a trial and error, but there's a bit of a ideation phase that happens. Okay, we could use this, we could use that, and then here's a roadmap of what you could do. And then you've just said, well, some of those were low priority, so maybe we either don't do them or we push them down the roadmap, right?
Yeah.
And so then you've got a bit of a plan. And I think there's a key thing here around, we made a comment around change management before. There's a consideration around change fatigue as well.
Yeah.
So if you happen to throw too much at your team too quickly, you're going to just disrupt them from actually doing what they're hired to do. They're not hired to manage tech products.
Yeah.
They're hired to do a specific job that they've got, skills and intellectual property around.
Yeah.
So you want to make that as seamless as possible. And the tools are supposed to improve things, not make it harder.
This is it. This is exactly it. You want to make life easier, not more difficult, which again is that step-by-step approach is the way I think to support that in what is a small team that is stretched across a whole lot of functions that they're managing. So we need to be careful in not taking them away from the value they're delivering for our members, which is why we exist.
Yeah, and you actually you made a comment earlier around it being harder. I'm not sure if you said harder or hard to change given you're a small team.
Yeah.
What do you mean by that? Because like in my mind, I think a big team of hundreds would be much harder to change than a small team.
Yeah, I think it's probably. I agree with that. I think the benefit of a small team is actually your communication is flatter, it's quicker, you're more nimble, you're more agile. I think the challenge is that resources are fewer to manage and support the change. So, there's no dedicated IT team of people who are managing this. It's part of a multifunction job for somebody. There's not that in-house support, which is why partnership with organisations like Celentive is quite important, because it augments those more limited skills that you're not going to carry in-house because you're such a small team. So I think it's probably less harder and more different. But I do agree that the potential for it also to be more agile, nimble, is very true in a smaller organisation. I'm always relieved. You can have a Teams call and talk to everyone very quickly.
Yeah, it seems so simple, but that's a key thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, my partner works in government, and it's just like, some of the processes and the barriers.
Yeah.
Like,
And it also makes for quick decision making, which I think in this environment is quite important as well. I mean, there's no hierarchy. You're really just collectively making a decision, and you can work that through quite fast. So that's an advantage, definitely.
Yeah, and I think there's, to my point earlier, bringing them along, bring them into that initial workshop and saying, hey, what do you use these products for? Do we even need these anymore? Like in a big organization, you may not get that opportunity with your ground staff, who are actually doing all the work, right?
Yeah, that's right.
And then you can get that real-time sort of feedback and input. And again, that sort of doubles down on when you actually start to implement it, they can feel that empowerment that, well, I was part of this process.
Yes.
So I'm kind of motivated to kind of champion the change along with the team, right?
And hopefully it's responding to the frustrations that we all have in our day-to-day work in terms of how things could work better, or how we've seen things work in other organisations that we've been in, and we'd like them to work that way here. So if they can air and share those insights as part of that process, then that supports that buy-in when we start to implement those solutions on the other side. Yeah.
Well, look, Jonathan, appreciate the conversation. Why don't we finish off with a question I like to ask people around AI and all this new stuff. What is the most exciting thing that you are, looking forward to when it comes to all these new products for perhaps either Consult Australia or your associations and members?
Look, I think it does come back to that conversation around let's make sure that this technology allows us to do more of the good and interesting and high value work and less of the uninteresting administrative tasks that bore us in our day-to-day. I mean, I think if we have great people at Consult Australia and we work with a fantastic industry. So if AI presents an opportunity to unleash that capability to an even higher degree, then bring it on. That's going to be better for all of us. But if it makes us all have to go home and wash the dishes because AI can't do that, then that's not going to be much fun for anyone.
There's a dishwasher. Isn't that like the most organic form of an automated process?
Maybe that's it. It's the glassware you can't put in the dishwasher. That's the challenge.
The wine glasses.
Yeah, that's it.
Speaking of which, shall we? No.
Yeah.
Look, thank you for your time, Jonathan. I really appreciate it. There's a lot of exciting stuff happening for Consult Australia, it sounds like, and your associations and members. So really appreciate your time today. And I'm looking forward to seeing what happens over the next year or so for you and your organisations.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for the chat, and thanks to Salentic for the support.
Thank you.
Cheers.